I wanted to first just kind of start off because I'm seeing a lot of reports. I mean, obviously, there's been some floor action on the CR here in the last couple of hours, and a lot of the reports are that the House Republicans moved to defund Obamacare, and as I understand it, that's not. Is that entirely true?
Well, it's entirely true within the limits of this continuing resolution that we're considering. And so all of the funding in this appropriations bill, which by the way is the largest one ever to come before the United States Congress, because they rolled everything up into one. But everything in that has language now that's been applied that shuts off any funding that can be used to carry out the provisions of Obamacare.
Okay. Are there any? There are some provisions though that aren't touched by the CR. That's right.
Well, that's true, and that's what I was trying to get at in my efforts before the Rules Committee last week, that there are multiple places that are written into the Obamacare legislation that automatically appropriate dozens of places, and we got a CRS report that it finally published. Please strike that word finally. I don't want to make it sound like I'm frustrated because they're under the gun a lot. But anyway, it was late from the debate standpoint, but it was February 10th, Thursday, just a week ago yesterday. And that report came out. I knew the numbers in it. We'd been working with them, and I had been talking about the total. But I didn't have the actual report in my hand until after I met with the Rules Committee. So that having a report in hand is far more meaningful than citing some numbers. But we did get down to numbers that we can agree on. It's $105.5 billion in automatic appropriations that were slipped into Obamacare, and they go on in perpetuity unless Congress can take an affirmative action to shut them off. I wasn't able to get that done, but I was able to get 2 amendments passed. Denny Rehberg of Montana was indispensable today. He got his amendment on, but it also was a way that he worked it procedurally that very much helped the success of my endeavor.
Okay. So just to clear that up now, that 105 now, the 105 billion, that's all in automatic appropriations, and how much do you know in these annual appropriations that did get defunded today?
Well, the Rehberg amendment was at least $100 million, and we didn't take the time to score mine and put a hard dollar figure on it. But what we do know is that the Budget Committee has looked at it, and this has been in negotiations with the Congressional Budget Office, etc., that it's not a net cost to us from a revenue standpoint, that it's a net savings. And so that was a big reason why we were able to make it in order. I can't tell you how much. I can tell you that the automatic appropriations that were in this year were $4.95 billion in this fiscal year. But all of that was outside the scope of the amendment that any of the amendments that were offered, and that includes mine.
Okay.
So I don't want to really guess on this, but I don't think we can say that we saved billions. I think that we can say pretty safely that the $100 million that is the Rehberg number has been increased substantially.
Oh, good. Okay. Now, in talking with leadership today about your amendment, they pointed out that there was I guess as there is on all bills, there's an agreement among Republicans as to which amendments will come to the floor. And I know that you could have, even though it was ruled out, not granted a waiver, you could have offered your amendment on the floor, and then there would have been a parliamentary procedure. And I think, as you were explaining yesterday to our editor-in-chief, Terry Jeffrey, that process, that parliamentary process, could have resulted in, in layman's terms, essentially a kind of a showdown on the House floor between you and the parliamentarian, essentially. And so you agreed not to offer that on the floor. Did you get any type of commitment or promise from the Republican leadership that you would be able to offer that amendment on a different vehicle?
Well, actually, I did offer it on the floor today, and I knew that it would be ruled out of order because it was legislating on an appropriations bill. But the language I'm proposing could have been written into the bill, and if the bill had gone through committee, it could have easily been in order to offer it in committee. So there are a number of places it could have gone in. It did not. And it put me in this position, and put us in this position, because this is an American initiative. And I offered it, expecting that they would hold a point of order on it. They did. I was able to debate the amendment before it was ruled out of order, and that was the point where there was an anticipation that I or someone might appeal the ruling of the chair. And I elected not to do that, because once you go down that path, you're challenging the gentleman in the speaker's seat, and you're challenging the parliamentarian. And if you end up with a vote to determine that, then you can easily split the conference and pit us against each other. And so I didn't think the prospects of success were great enough to put us at that kind of a risk, and I elected not to challenge the ruling of the chair.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, this is not the last time, most likely not the last time we'll see this CR. That there will at the very least be some sort of conference process, and most likely, I believe, as you were explaining, there will be other must-pass funding things, not to mention the upcoming debt ceiling increase. Have you had any assurances from leadership that you'll be able to offer that amendment, and it'll be in order? You won't have to worry about that.
Here's how I would describe it: is that they're looking for a good vehicle and good timing, and I'm looking, and we're working together in a common way to get there. I've said that I believe that we need to put my language onto every appropriations bill all the way through the 112th Congress, and I'm still of that opinion. I haven't changed that. The debt ceiling is another good place for leverage. There's been a suggestion just to, with limited constraints, bring a debt ceiling bill and put the complete repeal of Obamacare right on it, and let the president decide whether he wants to lift the debt ceiling or whether he wants to preserve his pet project that will shut off shut off some of the funding to it. That's just some discussion and dialogue that's out there. Sure. But as far as a hard deal, we've got an understanding, and I guess I would rather have an understanding than I would a hard agreement, because that means that we can try many things together.
Okay, but I mean, they are working with you to get this done. I mean, this isn't something where they've said no thanks.
That's right. I'm confident that Leader Cantor and I are on the same page. I haven't gone into the steps with the speaker, and I've had some intense conversations with the whip as well. And I see a level of determination on their part, and they see a level of determination on my part, and I think they come together. And with this House vote today, this resounding House vote, 4 votes that cut off funding to Obamacare, I think that we've broken the ice on this, and there's no reason not to put the silver bullet language in the first opportunity that has a chance of success.
Okay. Now, some of these mandatory automatic spending programs, rather, if I recall, they are grant programs, most of them, for all sorts of just a whole different list of things. And so some of them may or may not, just on their own merits, find support from some Republicans there in the House. How confident are you that once you get the vehicle and you get the leverage right, how confident are you that your amendment will pass to shut this funding off? I think that we've got the votes to pass. Anything that shuts off funding, anything that further repeals, it's a matter of bringing the right leverage to bear. With it today, I think it's very clear. Every Republican voted to repeal Obamacare. I believe every Republican voted to cut the funding off, although I haven't seen the sheet to be certain of that. And it looks to me like it's marginally bipartisan, so the votes are there. If the votes are there and the politics stay the way they are, then it's a matter of marching down through here and bringing this issue with us at every step along the way, and until such time as that leverage is found and we get to the point where all of Obamacare's funding is shut off. And in an optimistic world,
or somehow we can end up with the repeal of Obamacare. You know, if I were the President of the United States, of course I wouldn't have done this in the first place, but he's trying to position himself to get reelected in 2012. Well, it seemed to me that if I were he, I would not want to go out and have to run on Obamacare. So maybe he would consider this, and you know, it's a bit of a stretch of the imagination today, but stranger things have happened in politics.
Okay, so what it sounds like I'm hearing from you, because you know I was watching your exchange with the Rules Committee, and they were seeming to kind of frustrate you with this, you know, this not wanting to grant the waiver and that sort of thing. But what I'm hearing from you now is it seems that you're on the same page with leadership on fully defunding Obamacare just in its entirety, not worried about you know, the technicalities of appropriations language and rules and things like that, but I mean on board for the full defunding of Obamacare. Is that correct?
Oh, I think so. I really do think so. And as you listen to the Rules Committee, you know, one should just think that the language that was coming out of them was a kind of a cautionary language that should have told us all, and did tell me on the spot, that they did not have a green light to work with, and so they were delicately delivering a message. And as it went down the line from the chairman, line of seniority, down to the freshman, they were each picking up on the signals from the other one and, you know, positioning themselves. And I respect them all. I like them all. I work with them all, and we'll be able to work together into the future. And some of them came off the Rules Committee and helped with this process on the floor, and I'm very grateful for that.
Okay. So one last question while I got you on the phone. I don't think a lot of people understand that this is money that was appropriated in the Obamacare law and is set to be spent over the next couple of years. Your amendment would rescind that unspent money, so it would take it back. What do you plan to do with that money? Because I mean, there's a whole host of things. Congress could do anything.
Well, I think there's a question about whether it's rescinded or whether it comes back, because as we have looked at this language, we reviewed it as just freezing everything in place. So the money that's been collected is not spent. There's no activity to collect more money, and there's no activity to deploy the provisions of Obamacare. So everything stops in place as we have reviewed this language, and those things sometimes might get litigated and others might interpret it differently. But that's the analysis that we've had going into this discussion, and that's how I presented it to the Rules Committee.
Okay. Where do you see this finally playing out? I mean, the Democrats have already kind of come out, and the White House has already come out and said, you know, took a pretty firm stand against this. House Republicans made it pretty clear today where they stand. Where do you? All Republicans, I think, that I've ever heard have said that they're not going to shut down the government. Where do you think this is going to end up?
Well, I think that, you know, if you listen carefully, it becomes clear that Republicans are determined to provide the resources to keep this government functioning, and keep it functioning in a smaller government than we've had that's been grown by the Democrats. We have to keep that in mind, that we are sincerely and literally cutting the size of government. But aside from that, we're determined to keep the funding in place. And it's been Harry Reid and others that have been talking about a government shutdown. They seem to think that would be good for them politically. I don't know why anybody could just make decisions on what they thought was good for them politically at the expense of the American people. But what I do think is this, that we can't go into this and announce that we're not willing to allow them, or, you know, that we'll make concessions so that the President or Harry Reid don't shut the government down. You have to be willing to draw the line someplace. And, you know, the stronger we are, the more solid we are, and it is a game of brinksmanship. A better chance that Obamacare will be completely unfunded and reach its the ultimate complete repeal one day. But as it all plays out, I expect that this CR probably doesn't get through the Senate and back to the House in time to keep this government functioning. So that tells me that we'll be discussing a short-term CR sometime in the future.
Okay. And how confident are you, just at the end of the day, when you finally do get the government funding, however it comes out, how confident are you that House leaders will draw that line in the sand and it'll be and Obamacare funding will be cut off when they do?
Well, that's a judgment call now, and I will tell you that as strong as our House is on this, that helps the leaders be even stronger. So after this vote today, I'm good. I'm more confident than I was yesterday, and I think also that the tests that this conference has been through on this CR debate as it's going on now, it could have divided us, it could have weakened us, it could have pit us against each other, but I think instead it's causing us to gel just like a good team does after a tough game.
Hey, Congressman King, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
You bet. Good talk to you. Take care.
Bye-bye.